Hello and welcome to the Soul Sync podcast. I'm Jason Paul. Now, in today's episode, we're joined by someone called Simone Key. And I have to say, I've known of Simone for a very long time because she was a tutor for over 3 decades at the Arthur Findlay College, which is where I've spent a lot of my time kind of studying. She doesn't teach there anymore. She now teaches through the Waking Heart School of Wisdom, where she continues to support medium healers and intuitives in their development. Now, today's episode, it's a really deep one, and it's for anyone that really wants a more grounded, honest understanding of what mediumship actually is and what it's for. Now, in my own unfolding of my own mediumship, this conversation really did touch me. We begin with Simone's own story, which is how she went from being kind of literally a staunch atheist to having mediumship unfold in her life literally kind of overnight. We talk about how disorientating that can also be, and I really resonated with that myself because, you know, it can feel lonely, this journey of mediumship. Sometimes you can go for a period, a long time, of just not really feeling that you fit in anywhere, or you haven't found your tribe. I now know that to be in my own sort of story. I think us sensitives, you know, we find the world quite difficult, the world of the muggle, as my lovely, beautiful friend Donna might say. So we also go in this conversation to talking about kind of trance, where that fits into things. Simone's own journey is really captivating. She's got so much wisdom, and when it comes to the spirit world and what she's experienced in all of her decades, she talks from the heart, and it really touched my heart, this episode, and you can probably tell that by my voice. So whether you're at the beginning of your journey or you've been working for years and want to return to the very foundations of mediumship, this conversation, I promise you, will bring you back to what matters, which is clarity, sincerity, healing, and truth. All right, so let's get into this. This is my conversation with Simone Key here on the Soul Sync. So, Simone Key, welcome to the Soul Sync podcast. It's lovely to have you here.
It's good to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
Oh, I've been excited, and we were saying before I pushed the record button. Oh, there we go. There's my phone going off after just 2 seconds. So professional. We were saying that I feel like I know you because I've seen a lot of videos and kind of come across your path a lot before. So I guess for anyone meeting you for the first time, how do you introduce who you are and what you do now beyond the labels of medium and minister? What is your mission?
I'm not a minister. If you can...
Okay, well, let's clear that one up from the get-go then.
That's great. Thanks. I know that's part of the past. To be honest, I don't tell anybody what I do until I know that they need to know.
That's an interesting take from the start, isn't it? And how do you know if one...
I'm not the sort that puts my hand up and goes, here I am, I'm a medium. I'm the last person that will do that.
Do you know what? It's interesting you even say that, because I'm very much of that same philosophy and mindset. I keep it a secret, even in my day job. I
don't keep it a secret. I just don't tell people that don't need to know.
Now, as you can tell from my first question, I've listened to a lot of things that you've said over the years.
Yeah.
And there were some really interesting videos that I came across. And one thing that jumped out to me is you said that sort of mediumship kind of happened to you overnight. It was...
Yeah.
You were a convinced atheist.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was an absolutely staunch atheist. I would have there's no such thing as God, and and my mother and father were different religions, so we had no religious indoctrination at home, and so I was left to choose my own religion, and decided to become an atheist in my teenage years, and it was in my 30s when mediumship happened to me almost overnight. It was a long story, but I just didn't know what was happening to me. I was very scared, was a lot of things going on. Like I could feel energy, and I was hypersensitive to energy, and I know all mediums are now, but it isn't something I wanted. Really was. I didn't want this. It wasn't. I was looking for it. And then when things started to happen to me, I went to see a little old lady who was a medium, and she told me this is the way that was meant for me. But I really wasn't happy about that.
Why was you not happy about it?
Because I really wasn't sure I believed in life after death, and I wasn't sure that I was certainly not I didn't feel I was the right person for it, and I really felt uncomfortable with it, and that was a lot to do with indoctrination from my parents, and all of the background, but it was being convinced that through my son, who was 2.5 years old, that there was a little girl that used to play with him, and she told me all about this medium told me all about her and why she was with him, which was to help me understand it and get me involved, because my son has got his own family now, and he has no recollection of this whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah.
How bizarre. So when you look back now then, on reflection, where were the kind of threads of spirit sort of, because it sounds like they were kind of influencing your journey a lot before this kind of moment.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right, because there were lots of things I would suddenly just know, especially, unfortunately, I suppose, because it was more dramatic. I remember the fact that, when my grandmother died, and my grandmother was 52. I mean, she was not an old lady, and I knew when I that day that she had died. And then I knew later on when my mum had died as well. And there were various signs, but unfortunately they were always linked with things that were very raw and very near to me. So I was scared of it.
It was much like that with my journey. I was an atheist. I didn't believe in anything because I didn't believe in God. because I was gay, and I just thought the church and this, that, and the other. Yeah. So it was a very hard lesson for me to even come to learn. But I now know that when I look back at my journey, I can clearly see that spirit were influencing a lot of things, and that's only been a recent thing that I could kind of even say. And I just found it interesting, because to go from someone who has a worldview of an atheist to then a medium overnight is a massive. Well, it's a massive change in worldview.
It was, it was very scary. But then there comes that time when a lot of people I know, when they first come into this, what I call movement, of spiritualism, we become so open to the point where we don't ever close down. We're just looking who's out there now, and what do they want to say to me now, where we're not even sleeping well at night because we still think, we're still talking and all the rest of it.
Oh, yes.
And I think everybody goes through that to start with, or most of us, not everybody, but that's a bit too general, but most of us go through that, and then we have to learn to kind of calm down, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's how I.
Well, you do. And even that's been a recent thing for me. I thought, no, it's sort of 11:30 at night, and I'm sort of feeling a bit wired because I'm still sort of my mind's half in one world and half in the other.
Yeah.
And if anything, that can be dangerous because of the fact that then you can exhaust yourself from that, and then
absolutely
be not close to the other world at all.
No.
So I kind of get that. There's one thing that really jumped out at me in some of the sort of past interviews I've looked at that you've done, all about evidence and how you seem to have this view of really understanding and drilling down on evidence. And is that?
I think because generic stuff drives me nuts.
Yes.
The grandmothers that cook or knit or sew. And I'm a grandmother. I'm so happy to be a grandmother. I've got 4 grandchildren who I adore. but I don't knit, I don't cook, I don't sew, and grandmothers today have probably got piercings, tattoos, and everything. Not that I have, but lots have, And I just get tired of general information, this, stuff that's just bland. And it isn't because it's got to be so evidential, because sometimes an expression can be evidence, sometimes a mannerism can be evidence. It doesn't have to be, like, they died outside Boots on a Saturday afternoon at 3:00. It doesn't have to be that kind of evidence, but it has to be emotional evidence for me.
I think it's the emotional evidence that for me is, when I think back to all the readings I've ever had, the ones that have moved me the most are not the ones with the strongest evidence, because there's only so many times I can hear that my granddad wore a flat cap, and I know that is enough. I know that is an identifying feature of his when coming through, but it's about the emotion and the personality.
That's right. And the time that you had together.
Yeah.
To me, that's the point, that a lot of people don't get that. A lot of mediums don't get that there's all that time those two people had together. What did they say to each other? What did they do together? How did they treat each other? Because there are times when you can come across, and I know you would know this, you come across a contact in the spirit world and they're actually not being very nice when they're here, and you can bring them through as being not very nice. But then there's a turning point when you can say to their love family or friends, actually, this is how they are now, which is completely different. And that is a form of healing, because that will tell me that some member of their family or their friend is thinking, oh, I don't really want to go to the spirit world, because if I do, I'm going to come across them.
Yes.
So I think my job is about putting people's minds at rest.
It is. I think this is the thing with mediumship. I think it can improve. It's there. I think, yes, as healing, and we have to go through healing as mediums in order to heal. But I think, yes, it is to heal people, but it's also to stop people living their life through fear. To tell them that, you should be living your life more fully, because the true, I guess, message of spirit in my mind is that they're trying to allow us to live in a way where we don't have these limiting beliefs about ourselves, that we can't do this, that, and the other. And, when I think back to even some of the trance that I've seen, it's all about you trying to live your best life.
Absolutely. I know that the spirit world have told me the words, it's not enough to know the spirit. It's how you use it to move people's minds away from indoctrination. Because that's their biggest hurdle, is indoctrination.
Well, just to know they exist really is, I guess, not even stepping into the... to know they exist is comforting on one level, but that's not moving you out of ultimately what the scarcity mindset is.
No, it's about living life to the full.
Yes.
It's got to be about living life, and every one of us knows times when we've been stuck in our own heads, if you like, living in your own head, and you're not living life to the full. I think everybody knows what that feels like at some time in their life,
Yes.
And that's when we get that constant reminder, I think, that we've got to live life to the full, that there is more to life than what we're seeing or doing with our lives.
With how intelligent and powerful the spirit world are, it's a bit of an insult in some ways to say that the only thing they're here to do is to prove their existence. That's like showing like a grain of sand of their power.
Absolutely, that's the least of their concerns, is giving you evidence, or me evidence. That's not what they're here for. I do believe we need that to prove it to ourselves to start with. But once you've got your proof, what then? Where do you go then?
Yes. Well, what do you do with it? And that's, well, for me, that was what I guess kind of pulled me into it, because I thought, now I know without any shadow of a doubt that it exists, what the hell do I do with this?
Yeah.
Because I need to do something. I guess you've said in an interview that I watched before that some of your early experiences watching Trance were, like, frankly, quite frightening. And
they were horrific.
Yeah, and I guess I wanted to know a bit more about that because I've talked a lot recently on this show about trance, and every trance medium I speak to says that yes, it is gaining in popularity. I have been on a week where I now feel that trance is the foundation of mediumship, but it has got this stigma around it. So I wanted to know what it was that you found frightening.
Well, people's faces for a start. Because people don't get, no, when I say that, it's so general, I'm sorry. But some people don't get that trance is mental mediumship, not physical. So their faces look like, that, to put it bluntly, they look horrific. They've got quite nice faces, and then they'd suddenly start pulling strange faces, which are very, very scary. And I've been confronted by various mediums in my past who have beckoned me to come closer to them in groups, with groups of people. And they've looked at me and I thought, I know I'm going to have nightmares tonight, because they look like Quasimodo. They look like, they look strange in their mannerisms, their gestures, their eyes, everything about them looks odd. And when we know that it's spirit to spirit, it's nothing to do with the physical body. Nothing, but people always seem to, some people assume that it has to have an effect. Now, I know that energy can have an effect on us. I know that. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But it doesn't mean it's going to make me do strange things with my body. It just means that I can feel the energy around me, and sometimes in the beginning of your development, you can feel the energy pushing you in a certain way. And I remember, years and years ago, I went to the States. I was working out there, and there was this big room above bookstore, and it had about 90 odd people in it. And there was this man who was a trance medium, and he had his back to the wall, and it was a huge room to get 90 people in, of course. And his aura, I remember his aura when the spirit came close was so expansive and so vibrant. I had to put my hands over my eyes because the light was too bright for me.
Wow.
And when you looked at the people either end of him, like where his aura finished, one was sitting bent that way and the other one was being pushed that way by the energy, but you could see it, and that's the kind of thing that stays with me, that's different. It's alive. It's meaningful. It's not bland.
I guess if you could rewrite how trance is kind of taught, how would you teach people how to kind of interact with the trance state?
Well, my teaching, because I work mainly as a trance medium, and my trance teaching is always about moving one's mind into the stillness and silence, because noise is the destroyer of that faculty. So moving into that stillness and silence and allowing the spirit to take control of your thinking. Now, that sounds easy, but I'm yet to find someone who's not a control freak. And anyone that's not a control freak, I would be scared of, so, but that's the thing. It's about the blending. It's about the way we enable the spirit to come to the fore of our minds and with our consent, take control. That's what trance is all about. But there are many different aspects of trance. A lot of people think trance is trance, and it isn't, because it depends on what you're doing as to the level of trance that you go. So, for instance, I work in the lightest state. I would work as with trance healing, but it doesn't mean that light means it's not as effective. Because I believe that the lighter it is because it matches the frequency of energy of the spirit at that level. And I'm going to be honest and say, and I really don't mean this as being egotistical, but if it didn't work, I wouldn't do it. So I've had my proof that it works. And so I know that it's much, much lighter than anything else I do. So when I look at, say, trance speaking, which is the philosophy of spirit. I know that I probably go deeper with that because the vocabulary has an energy. And as they're speaking through you and the words come out, that is bringing energy and, into the room, building up energy, which is taking you deeper, because the more energy you have for trance, the deeper you go. But I have a real issue with the word deep with trance, because there's different states of trance. Even if you were giving contact to a loved one from somebody in the spirit world, there is a very, very light hold going on in that moment, because if you move your mind in any other way, you've lost it.
Yeah, it's like an eclipse. You have a moment, and
that's right. But
you have to seize that.
It's a hold. They've captured your attention. They've held you in the moment. That's how it works. With the trance state, that goes into a deeper hold. That's the point. But deep doesn't necessarily mean better. In my book, depends on what you're doing. And I do different things in the trance state. I do, like, as I said, I do trance healing. I do trance speaking, which is with philosophy. I do trance communication, which enables the spirit loved ones to speak through me directly to their loved ones, where they're saying what they want to say and not what I think they want to say.
So you described the healing as the lightest, and I know that you've just mentioned about deep, but when are you in the deepest state for the work that you do?
For me, it's trance speaking with philosophy, because the vocabulary and the energy of vocabulary takes you deeper and deeper, and because there's no stop, it's fluent. It should be fluent anyway, and it should be continual. Therefore, the energy is going into the room and taking you deeper and deeper, and you've got more because you've got more to say, and you get out of the way, basically.
Yes. See, one of the hardest things I found about trance, and I've recently said to a number of people, if I'd have gone on trance, if I'd have delved into trance first, I think I'd have excelled a lot in my development because of that being the foundation. However, if I really stop and think about it, actually, I think I had to start with evidential, because if I'd have started with trance, I didn't even fully believe in mediumship at that point.
I certainly wasn't. I certainly was not interested in trance mediumship when I first started.
Yes.
I was absolutely terrified of it. So the evidence was giving me more and more trust in the spirit, if you like.
Yes, me as well.
But in the olden days, we're going back to the 40s, 30s, 40s, they used to teach trance first.
It was a lot more disciplined. It was like, from what I understand, to get into mediumship, you would have to go through that period of discipline of sitting for just however long it took before you'd even have that interaction of communication.
I actually know me well enough to know that 2 weeks of that I'd have been out. I'm not going to lie. I'm just not going to make it up for you, because I know I have not got the stamina to sit there doing nothing for all those hours.
No,
there has to be a purpose, even though it's blending with energy. But in those days, I wouldn't have known what I was doing. I wouldn't have known what I was sitting for. I wouldn't have known what the purpose of it was, even though somebody might have told me. It wouldn't have resonated with me. You have to have some experience of the spirit, I think, to hold you there.
It goes back to trusting and surrendering, I think.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most difficult things I found with trance. And I have sat for trance a number of times, but I've never fully spoken through it. I've had hard moments at the start where I thought I was talking through the spirit, then realised I wasn't talking through the spirit at all. It was some kind of inspired speaking more than that.
Yeah, but that can lead you to trance.
Yes.
Okay. Don't be too hard on yourself, because that can lead you to trance. So it might have been very useful for later on.
I guess it goes back to the question. I think the hardest thing about trance is the simplicity of it, but it's the trusting and surrendering enough.
I think it's the hardest thing in the world. It might sound very simple on paper, but all of us, as I said before, we're all control freaks. We all want to know what's going on. We all want to know what's going to be said. We all want to know, we want to repeat what's being said, which means it's mediumship and not trance, So we've all been there, but it takes time. And it takes determination. And those two together, you'll get there. And obviously, you've got to have the time and you've got to have the right surroundings as well. I'm a great believer in sitting on my own. I don't have to sit with other people with trance, And I'm always saying to people when they say, well, what can I do to practice? Say, put your phone on record. Let the spirit speak through you when you're on your own. You feel comfortable, and if you can bear it, like most of us can't, but if you can bear listening to it at the end, then listen to it. But then what I would always suggest is listen to it with a view with how much of this do I remember? And at the beginning, you'll remember all of it. And then the next time might be 95%. And the next time might be 80%. And it gets less and less the more you go on.
Well, it's an evolution. It was funny you mentioned that because I felt like I asked the spirit world a few weeks ago and I said, if I was to just record, because obviously, the whole purpose of trance is you're sitting there for an audience of some description. If you're sitting there and the spirit speaking through you for no one and there's nothing recording them, what are they doing? You're actually speaking to a blank room. So I sort of said to the spirit world, right, if I was to do a recording, for this podcast and just start working on sitting in the state doing it, would you want to play ball? And the reaction I got from them was, yes, we want to play ball. So I thought, yes, I am going to start doing that. I guess even for me recently, I've had moments where I've felt so in the power that, sometimes I just don't want to come back to the real world.
Most of us stuff.
But I guess I was going to say, after doing this work for so long, when you're in the power now, what does that inner landscape feel like for you when you are in
just a comfort factor?
Yes.
It's just comfortable. It's reliable. I trust it implicitly. I can't honestly say to you, I know who's there. Because when I'm working on my own, if I'm sitting on my own in the power and I'm not working for somebody else, say, I haven't a clue who's there, but I know I don't need to know. I just know it's my spirit team, if you like, and that they don't want to show me who they are either, because, there's no need. It's unnecessary and it's wasting energy as well,
It kind of jumped out at me as well, but you've been, you moved away in one of these interviews I was watching about using sort of naming guides being a big thing for you. And I want to, what made you sort of shift in your understanding of that?
The spirit world. I used to be able to tell you the names of probably most people can, tell me most of the guys. And then they said to me one day, we don't want you to do that because how I see the system of guides and helpers is very similar to mainstream education. You go into your first school, you have a set of teachers that take you to a certain point, and then you have other teachers that lead you to the next stage and so on. It's the same with the spirit world. You don't have the same teachers in the beginning as you do 20 years later,
Yeah.
So, well, that's what they've taught me. And they said, once you start to know names, you then become possessive. Then if you change that word, you get nearer the truth with obsessive.
Yes.
That's what they taught me. But I know that there's a lot of people out there that just wouldn't agree with me. And you know what? I'm okay with that because we're all different and we're entitled to be different.
Well, I guess it's the human experience I think the ultimate human experience is attachment, isn't it? That's what we come down here to learn. And if we're attaching a name to a guide, that's kind of going against the grain of what the very human experience is all about, isn't it? Yeah. So it does kind of make sense.
I mean, in the beginning, you need that because you need something to hang on to. But I learned very early on from them because I'm going to say, because most of the stuff that I was taught was from the spirit world, because they said to me, right at the beginning, they said to me, make us your teachers.
Do you know what? I think there is no better teacher than the spirit world. And I think so many people in the early days of their development, they surrender all their power to that other teacher who says, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. And it's not the right way. You'll pick up bits from people, but My granddad, who was actually a medium, he's definitely a guide or a helper of mine because he's always around. And he said to me, Jason, you need to stop surrendering your power to teachers and books and people, authors. You take what you want and then talk about your own way of seeing the world and come up with your own concepts on these, on these things.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree, because I think that we're all individuals first.
Yes.
We're not all the same. We all may have very similar backgrounds in terms of how we came into it, but we're not all the same. We've all got different experiences in life, which is why we see different aspects within other people. Those are things that we've been through, you know, and, you know, I believe that 99.9% of the time, most mediums have had tough lives.
Do you know what? And I think that, because I think that there's two types of mediums. I think there's the technically minded mediums and the more emotional mediums. And I think that through my experience, most of the really emotional mediums I've met are the ones who've been through really hard times. And then even my life now, look, why was my 20s such a bloody nightmare? Well, I think it was such a nightmare because I had to go through that to then have the awakening of the 30s. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense. I guess one of the things that I always find when I hear about people talk about guides is everyone seems to have a nun, a Native American and a monk.
That's right. But I believe that they're archetypes. I don't believe that they are individuals. I believe they're archetypes because this is what the spirit world taught me. That when you see, say, the Native American Indian, you know, you have to look at what that symbolizes, what that represents.
Yes.
And for me, that represents healing and the love of the community, love of nature, and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to bore you with it. But then if you look at the nun, you're looking at, you know, that the power of God. You're looking at the power of prayer. You're looking at healing in the community. But you're also looking at doing the same stuff over and over again.
But I guess for people that want to, you know, maybe feel the pressure to meet their guides, and I know I did in the early days, because I was thinking, why is it everyone seems to know their guides and not me? I guess what do you want those people to know then? What should they be knowing about trying to get to understand and know one's guide?
Ask.
Yeah, very simple. Then.
That's it.
Like anything else in life, why overcomplicate it?
Yeah, ask. Yeah, ask them to give you signs, ask them to give you words, ask them to give you pictures, ask them to give you proof.
Yes.
Because then you'll be in forever. It's almost like the fishing line that they throw out and then they reel you in, you know, with all those other things, you know, but that's it, you know.
I guess because you another thing that jumped out to me is you've experienced a lot of moments in trance healing. And I guess, could you tell us about some of those moments and things that you've witnessed to sort of demonstrate the power of what the spirit world can actually do through this work?
Oh, grief. Oh, don't know where to start. Just, it's so simple for me. The idea, the concept of it is so simple, which is for the medium to get themselves out of the way. That's it. Get yourself out of the way. Let the spirit do the work. That's my slogan, by the way. I always say that a lot. Let the spirit do the work, you know?
Yes.
Because we interfere, because we dilute the very essence of what we're trying to create by interfering. We all need to know what's going on. You know, there comes that point. But once you've got past that, then you need to just get out of the way, let the spirit do the work, and let them heal where they feel that person needs healing, and not where they think or I think. You know, and I'm a great believer in letting the spirit world decide where the healing needs to go. Because in today's society, we have so many psychosomatic illnesses. So if you've got a problem with your foot that is because you're not thinking straight, there's no point working on your foot. It's your mind that needs working on.
Yes.
You know,
yeah, that makes sense.
That's where I'm going. So, you know, for me, it's all about allowing the spirit to go to the causative factor and not thinking that where that person is suffering is the causative factor. And the spirit world says to me, especially now, especially in the last couple of years, that, you know, people don't seem to realize that they're not taking responsibility for what they eat and what they drink. And the trouble is, for a lot of people today, including myself, so please don't think I'm being judgmental, because I happen to be diabetic, so I have to be careful. And what they're saying to me is that what happens is people are eating and drinking stuff. They don't know what's going on, and they don't know what effect it's having on them, and it's poisoning their system. And no amount of healing will help, because there's no let up, because they keep re-poisoning themselves.
Well, you're not giving your body a break, are you?
No. And that's what they say to me, because one of the things I do, which I know is legal.
Well, it has to be legal on this, obviously. If it was, no, we only had a young man on talking about psychedelics the other day. Simone.
It's just the fact that if somebody came to me for healing and they asked me a question like, what do you think it is? I'll always say, look, this is my opinion and I'm not medically qualified, okay? But I know with what the spirit world says, but they will never, ever, ever give me anything that's damaging or shocking in any way. But what they may say to me is, this person's got a gluten intolerance, or they've got an intolerance towards, or they've got, what's the other one?
Allergy.
Yeah, it's some forms of allergies or intolerances, whatever. And they'll tell me what they are. And I'll say to the person, look, what I'm going to say to you is, just try not to include that in your diet for the next couple of days. If it makes no difference, ignore me.
I think that's a beautiful thing. Honestly, you'd be there all day with me if you was to do me one of those readings. I'm very sensitive with things like this. I think another thing that jumped out at me is it felt to me like a lot of your development over the years has been away from sort of traditional circles, and I think you touched on that a moment ago.
Yeah.
What do you think that sort of gave you that the conventional routes couldn't, or
because I felt that they were, please remember they were a long time ago, so I'm not talking about anybody now at all, but in my day, they were very conventional and they were very rigid. They were what I call, I'm sorry, my word's gone straight out my head, ritualistic is the word before. I'm not ritualistic. I'm actually quite against rituals, I believe in the power of thought. So if I want to link with you, with your permission, I would just move my mind to you. If I wanted to look, me, I move my mind to me. If I want to work with the spirit, I move my mind to the spirit. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I don't have a ritual. It's just where I focus is where I work. And my focus is my intention.
Well, that was another thing that jumped out to me about you, is about the lack of rituals. You're not sitting there lighting your odd number of candles, getting your smudge stick out first, and sitting in the lotus position. Of that.
No, I'd have a job.
Key household.
No, I don't do that. No, I just believe in. I have the most utmost respect for the spirit world. I want to say that now before I say anything else. But I also know that they encourage me to do the things that I want to do in the way that they would like me to do them.
Makes sense. I guess there's a lot of discussion at the moment, and obviously we've talked about the power of the spirit and what the spirit can do, and there's many things they can do. There's their intelligence is off the charts, and I've seen them touch my life all over the place. So with all this an abundance of power available to all of us unlimited beings, why are younger people then not sort of seeing more about this movement?
They're not ready for it.
Oh, okay. You think this is something that is always going to be a thing?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to be not for young people or not for old people or not for middle-aged people. It happens when we're ready for it.
Yes, that is also very true.
And it wouldn't happen. It can't happen before then. That's the point, And so I know that I'm not. I'm just going to say, and I've probably said it before, but at the risk of repeating myself, but I know that, my family, for instance, I have 2 children who've grown up with their own families. Nobody's interested in my work. Not a soul. No, they all ask, do you have a good day? That's about as long as it, as interested as they get. But I know that they're not ready for it.
Yes.
And I used to get upset about it and uptight because I used to think, I'm interested in their lives. Why are they not interested in mine? What matters to me? And then I had to really think hard and think it's because they're not ready for it.
It's so not on their world sort of view.
It's not even that. You have to be ready for this because it's a lot to do, a lot to take in, a lot that is transformational. You and I can't even imagine what it was like before we came into this.
No.
It's so far behind us, is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
You and I can't even imagine our lives without spirit. Not for a second,
Yeah.
But maybe there's certain things in life that they are destined to do. Please remember, I'm talking off the top of my head because I don't know. But maybe there's something that there's a mission that they've got to do and they have to fulfill that purpose before they find out anything else. I don't know. But I've got to let them do it in their own time and in their own way.
Well, it was like that for me, and I've said it before on this podcast. My granddad was a medium. I never asked him one question about... Actually, I did ask him questions, but I wouldn't ask him questions about... I'd get more fascinated by wanting to know things about the Ouija board and the tarot card.
Yeah, the physical stuff. Yeah.
Not... I was annoyed actually when he passed away. I thought, why have I not asked him any questions? He's now gone to the spirit world, which he would do, all these readings. So I never once asked him a question, but I was more interested in the table tilting and things like that.
Yeah. Well, my daughter looks very much like me, unfortunately. She's a solicitor.
Yes.
And she believes that all I do is look for lost property. Honestly, that's it.
Well, I guess she has a point, actually. I guess if you think about it. Do you know what? I love your sense of humour with it, and I think what really jumps out to me about a lot of what you're saying is about finding your own way in mediumship. Absolutely. Everybody's way is different.
Absolutely.
And that's why you've got to not surrender your power to a teacher. You've got to find your way. Like you said, I said, if I came across trance, first of all, it doesn't matter that it's the very foundation of mediumship and helps you to know the power. It just wasn't what I needed at that time.
I wouldn't have taken mediumship seriously at that time. If he had gone into the trance state, I would have believed it was all off the top of my head, and I have seen enough mediums do funny voices that's put me off for life.
Yeah.
And it's despite them that I carried on.
I guess what would you say to someone who wants to sit in trance, but the thing they're really struggling with is, the ego that's saying, well, people are listening to me, people are watching me, getting the confidence to actually accept and trust. How do you get over that point?
I would suggest to them that they try to remember. I mean, obviously you'd say it in a nicer way, but that they try to remember the whole purpose of it, which is to allow the spirit to come to the fore and not them.
Do you know what? You have to go past, I think, this turning point with it where I look at myself being in the stage of wanting to believe it, but not believing it, then believing it, but not knowing it.
I recognise that.
Yeah. And then the knowing it stage, but still in denial that I haven't really surrendered yet. Then I would say the surrender stage. And honestly, and then I get to the stage now where I'm like, I still know that I'm a limitless being with infinite potential where I could do all these feats of amazement and the only thing stopping me, and the more you know, the only thing stopping you is you yourself from being you. It then becomes even more annoying because well, why are you stopping yourself from being the greatest version of yourself that you can be? Yeah. It's a $1 million question, isn't it?
Absolutely.
This is the problem. I think
that is the human mind. And I think it's right to go through those different phases of it because you have to find your own truth.
You do have to find your own truth. And I think a big point of that is not surrendering the power to other people, firstly.
Yeah, that's it.
And to be positive minded in your own abilities. And even once you know that you are a limitless being, to then still be able to encourage oneself, not give oneself a hard time, and to find the right balance, I think, of being in the your head being in one world and then another world, because
and I think
balance.
That's a particularly important issue, because I think there are too many people in the movement who live in the spirit world and not in the real world, not in the physical world. And, we come across them all the time. And, from the minute they go inside their door, they go into the spirit world. And the minute they go out, they might get some shopping and that, but they just come back into the spirit world all the time. And I don't think that's healthy, because I know I have eternity in the spirit world. I don't have eternity here.
But then I would also argue that I think I know some mediums that I think are too much in this world and not enough in the other world. Because if they were in the other world, maybe they wouldn't be doing so many of the actions because they know they weren't spirit inspired. So you could go one way or the other.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
It's like anything. There must be balance in love.
Yeah, of course.
In life and in the work.
Right, totally right. It's a balance that's important. I consider I have two lives. That's how I do it. I have one life with the spirit world, and I have one life with my friends and family. That's it.
Yes. Yeah, I guess you've obviously done this for such a long time, and you've got so much wisdom, and so many people would listen to this. Well, you're very modest then, Simone.
No.
But there's so many people that listen on this podcast that are on different stages of their development, and I know that because I hear from them all the time. So what would you want to say to people that are in the early stages, I guess, of trying to, come to terms with connecting to the spirit world or on their own journey? What would you say to people, having had all these years?
The first words I would say to them, there's no rush.
Yes.
You've got eternity to get this right. They would be the first words I'd say, because I remember my time. I was here, there and everywhere. I was running everywhere, wanting to listen, wanting to learn, wanting to do every blooming class that was going in those days,
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that the best work I did, if you like, if there was best work, was when I was on my own. Just with me and the spirit. That was it,
It's the best work that I ever do. And I think that, again, it goes back to probably surrendering of your power and thinking, when you're at the teacher, that's when you're really developing. But it's really that's
developing. You develop every day of your life.
Yeah.
It's not like, I'm in development now and I'm in another couple of hours, I'll be out of it. Once you open that door, it's continuous. It never stops, Every moment is a development,
I think that, I think at the beginning for me, the only time I would develop is really at the courses, because I'd never sit in the power by myself when I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it was then learning that I needed to do that as well. But
yeah, I just remember those days of going from one thing to another to another to another. I couldn't get enough, and perhaps not even digesting it, because after a while it all rolls into one,
It does.
And missing valuable opportunities in the meantime, So, and I look back sometimes and I think, maybe I should have taken more time or more time out from it. I was too obsessed by it, But
why was you so obsessed by it? Was it because it was helping you as much as you felt it was helping others, or?
I just knew it was my way to go, which was unusual, because I'd never ever, before that, I'd always wondered what my life's purpose was, And once I came into it, once the spirit touched my soul, I knew that was forever.
That's very interesting.
However long
very similar
forever
to me.
is. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Well, Simone, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you for coming on and sharing some of your pearls of wisdom.
You're very welcome. I don't know if I've got any pearls of wisdom.
Oh, you have. There's many pearls in there. But in fact, honestly, it's been a delight. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, no, it's been great. Thank you so much for asking me. It's been a joy.
Wasn't she just so lovely, Simone? I absolutely love talking to her. It's such a shame she doesn't teach at the Arthur Findlay College anymore. Her and a number of tutors obviously aren't there anymore, and that's such a shame, because she's got so much to offer the world. But if you do want to check out Simone or find out more about her, you can go to her website, and she does do a range of teaching options where she supports mediums so much. And do you know what? She honestly just gives so much from the heart. Lovely Simone. So I will leave you with that. I hope you're having a lovely festive period. You're managing to rest in between all your busy social plans, you lovely listener. I'm having a nice time. I'm resting, and also just enjoying the period.